You feel it before you understand it. A thrum beneath the headlines, a shift in the patterns of sunlight, a lingering silence at the edge of scientific discourse. Somewhere out past the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, the cosmos has begun to whisper again. And what it's saying, if you know how to listen, is not a warning. It is a countdown. The object known as 3I Atlas, once considered just another interstellar comet, is now exhibiting behavior so anomalous that seasoned physicists have quietly rewritten their models. Trajectory drift, spectral signatures that do not match any known natural composition, and most recently, alignment with Earth. As of October the 29th, 2025, the orbital path of 3I Atlas has shifted subtly, deliberately, as if guided by intent, and its next course correction, already calculated by amateur astronomers and aerospace agencies alike, places it on a vector that intersects with Earth's magnetosphere. Precisely. On December the 19th, what could possibly survive such a course? What natural body would behave this way? And why are observatories going dark? The impossibility stack is growing. This thing shed no tail until it reached precisely 4.4 astronomical units, far too distant from the Sun for spontaneous outgassing. It left a trail of carbon dioxide and trace xenon, an engineered atmospheric cocktail. It rotates in silence, but occasionally emits short, narrowband signals that pulse in a Fibonacci sequence. It was not noticed until it wanted to be, and now it is headed our way. What if this is not impact by accident, but contact by design? What if Earth's magnetic field is not a shield, but a circuit? What if what is coming is not a collision, but a boot sequence? Ancient records from Babylon, Sumer, and early Vedic astronomy all point to this same celestial interval, an object from Sagittarius, appearing every 3,600 years, bringing light, upheaval, and reordering. The myths were not mistaken. They were just misfiled. So tonight, you and I will not sleep through it. We will listen. We will open our minds, as our ancestors once did, because something is inbound. And December 19th is not just a date. It may be the line between epochs. You wake up to headlines that seem too calm for what they're reporting. Magnetic surge, detected near Lagrange point 2. Deep space radar, recalibrated. NASA temporarily suspends public telescope feeds. They sound like technical updates. They feel like omissions. Because behind them is the quiet truth no one will say aloud. The sky is not behaving. It started with telemetry shifts, high-frequency Doppler noise creeping into the reflected signals from 3I Atlas. Then came the trajectory, modeling supercomputers at Caltech and the European Space Operations Center. Both ran blind analyses and returned nearly identical future states. In less than 40 days, 3I Atlas will pass directly through Earth's magnetic tail. Not close, not nearby, through. That tail, also called the magnetotail, extends millions of kilometers into space, fanning out like a comet's own shadow, except it is ours. It is the invisible echo of Earth's magnetic field, shaped by solar wind, reaching farther than the moon. And into that ribbon of planetary influence, something is coming. On November 6th, researchers in Japan detected an abrupt distortion in the outer magnetosphere. They reported a strange resonance, an oscillating wave that matched no known solar frequency. It pulsed every 89 seconds for 2 hours. Then, silence. What followed was more concerning. Earth's Van Allen belts, those protective loops of charged particles, shifted. Satellites recorded particle counts that jumped by factors of 5, then normalized. The behavior didn't match any known solar flare or coronal mass ejection. The solar observatories had seen nothing, and yet the entire upper radiation environment had flexed, as though pushed from below. The culprit, still officially unknown, unofficially, several physicists, speaking under anonymity, point to the exact moment the anomaly began. The minute 3I Atlas passed an angular distance threshold that placed it in magnetic alignment with Earth's dipole axis. It was as if the object had plugged in. By November 9th, NOAA classified the entire magnetotail zone as under anomalous influence, a temporary classification, they claimed. But quietly, they pulled all public-facing data from their space weather dashboards. Something had entered a region it should have passed through inertly, and it had not passed through inertly at all. It had interacted, which brings us to the impossible part. You might remember what happened on November 12th. The auroras. They were supposed to be quiet, barely visible over northern Canada. Instead, they bloomed. Blood-red sheets over the skies of Texas, violet spirals over Madrid, a green corona in Saudi Arabia. These are not places where auroras bloom. And yet, that night, the entire sky seemed to awaken as if something massive had passed through Earth's electric shell and left it ringing like a struck bell. 3 independent ground stations reported brief high-altitude ionization anomalies, flickers in the E and F layers of the ionosphere. One researcher likened it to a brush of static across the atmosphere. It was brief, it was global, and it was impossible. No solar event had occurred, no atmospheric injection, no high-altitude detonation, only passage. And that passage is not over. As of now, 3I Atlas is accelerating, slightly, imperceptibly, unless you know where to look. Its velocity relative to the Sun has increased by 2.7% since late October, but not in a ballistic trajectory. It's curving, subtly adjusting course in a way that no natural object can. The correction arc matches the curvature of Earth's magnetic field. It is following the field like a needle drawn to iron. The scientific term for this kind of behavior is magneto-inertial guidance, and we only know that term because we invented it. The implications are staggering. A comet, supposedly tumbling inert through space, is now moving as if it can sense and respond to magnetic gradients. That suggests onboard sensing. That suggests decision-making. That suggests intention. And intention changes everything. It's worth pausing here to understand just how rare this is. Out of the thousands of comets and asteroids we've tracked, none have ever changed course in a manner consistent with guided motion except one, Oumuamua, and now 3I Atlas. But unlike Oumuamua, which only nudged, Atlas is aligning. Scientists at JPL are calling this a phase lock event. They say the object may be trying to reach synchronous resonance with Earth's magnetosphere, an orbital harmony, but they won't say why, not publicly, because the why leads somewhere no one wants to go. What happens when a high-energy, potentially artificial object moves into alignment with Earth's electromagnetic shell? Could it trigger a geoelectric event, a resonance cascade, a planetary-scale induction current, or worse, Is the field not being exploited, but activated? There are whispers now, from NASA insiders, from ESA technicians. They talk of the December 19th window as a critical period. They use terms like controlled interaction. One slip said, energetic arrival. What is arriving? Why does it need to move through our magnetic boundary? The data is clear. Earth is being prepared for something. And that something is using our magnetic field like a docking signal. We are no longer passive observers. We are the target. We are the port of call. And 3i Atlas may not be coming to visit. It may be coming to interface. If history speaks, it does so in cycles. And some of those cycles are longer than memory. You may not remember what happened the last time an object entered our solar system on this kind of trajectory, but the Earth does. The archives do. The old stones do. Sumerian tablets, carved more than 5,000 years ago, speak of a green star that rose in the east during a month with no name. It moved backward across the sky. It pulsed every 6th night. And then, without warning, rain turned black. Crops died. The king fasted for 7 days, and across the empire, birds vanished. They called it the Harbinger. The Babylonians called it something else. Nibiru, the crossing star, a celestial body that appears once every great age, bringing change, judgment, upheaval. It was never seen as inherently evil, only transformative. Whatever it touched, it altered. Whatever it passed over, it redefined. Of course, those are myths, until they are not, because when you take the ancient dates, translated, debated, dismissed, and compare them to modern astrophysical simulations of long-period orbital intersections, a peculiar resonance emerges. There is evidence barely visible in the sediment layers of Arctic cores that something altered Earth's atmosphere around 36 centuries ago. A spike in beryllium-10, a narrow band of increased magnetization in basalt, a drift in carbon ratios in petrified wood, suggestive of sudden cosmic radiation exposure. None of these are easily explained by solar cycles alone. And the timing? The event falls near 1570 BCE, roughly one synodic cycle ago, and that's the cycle in question now. The cycle of return. Historians call it coincidence, but cosmologists are less certain, especially now that 3i Atlas is exhibiting what can only be described as an orbital lock signature, a term typically reserved for satellites maneuvering into geosynchronous position. Except this is not a satellite, not from here, and it is not stopping at a stable orbit. It is intersecting Earth's magnetic tail again, repeatedly, like a skipping stone, adjusting to find its entry point. In ancient Chinese astronomy, such behavior was documented too. The astronomers of the Shang dynasty carved observations into ox bones, reports of heaven's lamp, dancing over the northern pole, changing color, vanishing, then returning 5 days later. They treated it not as a comet, but as a guest star, one that left messages, one that whispered through the oracles. And perhaps the most disturbing correlation, the Mayan, Dresden, Codex. Most scholars dismiss the astronomical passages as metaphor, but when decoded, some of those glyphs depict a descending body, one surrounded by what they interpreted as smoke and serpent fire, passing through what the Mayans described as the Skynet. That's an odd phrase. But when mapped onto our current geomagnetic structure, the Skynet might very well refer to the magnetotail. There's a glyph labeled Ha'ab no Ek, roughly, the great star of consequence. It passes behind the Sunday, then it returns, trailing sparks. And 27 days later, according to the calendar, a period of transformation begins. Sound familiar? Modern astronomers now agree that 3I Atlas passed behind the Sun on October the 29th. That means it re-emerges visible again to Earth-based observatories on or around November 25th, exactly 24 days before December 19th. Close enough to pay attention, but there's something else, something almost forgotten. In 1950, a small group of Cold War-era researchers working under Project Magnet, the precursor to NASA's ionospheric studies, detected a strange band of interference over the Arctic Circle. It wasn't solar, it wasn't terrestrial, it was pulsing. Every 89 seconds. Sound familiar again? The Air Force classified the data, but one memo, declassified in 2004, mentions an object of non-planetary origin, possibly re-entering observational range after a 2 millennia absence. That memo, archived quietly in a digital annex, references a single phrase in the margin: green signature, Skylock achieved. Do not transmit. What were they afraid of? Perhaps the same thing Loeb and his colleagues are afraid of now. That 3I Atlas isn't coming from nowhere, but from somewhere familiar. Which brings us to the strangest echo of all. Indigenous oral traditions across multiple continents reference a sky canoe or stone boat that travels not across the sky, but through the wind behind the stars. It makes no sound, it leaves no smoke, but it carries watchers, beings who do not speak aloud, but who hear through the trees and count heartbeats from the sky. These myths are often told as stories for children, but their core details are precise. It arrives behind the Sunday Thames, it circles silently, it lands without landing, and it marks the end of an age. Now, we find ourselves in possession of data that aligns with all four of those points. We are seeing the same echoes, the same behavior, the same dates. This is no longer about belief. This is about recognition. The trajectory of 3I Atlas is not just mathematical, it is ritual. It follows ancient harmonics, and its reappearance has long been anticipated, perhaps not by our generation, but by others. The sky remembers. So the question is not what is it? The question is, why does it return? If you know any ancient myths from your region that mention strange stars, write them in the comments below. What did your ancestors believe? What warnings did they pass down? Because in the silence between science and legend, something ancient is stirring again. And it remembers us. Zoom out, not just from the headlines, not just from the orbital charts. Zoom out from Earth itself, past the satellites, past the moon, past even the outer reaches of the heliosphere, and then ask yourself the question, what would it take for an intelligence to aim something across light years and have it arrive here? That question is not rhetorical, because whatever 3I Atlas is, it did not stumble into our system. It traced a path, one curved, calibrated, and now coincidentally aligned with planetary magnetic boundaries. To do that, it must have begun its journey with knowledge of us. We often think of the cosmos as random, chaotic, a whirl of gravity, gas, and frozen chance. But what if some part of it isn't? What if, in the dark, between stars, there are roots? Not random scatterings, but cosmic filaments of navigable structure, the same way migratory birds follow invisible magnetic rivers. What if 3I Atlas is riding one? There's precedent for this idea. We know that interstellar molecules arrange themselves along vast magnetic strands. We know that gas clouds birth stars at the intersections of invisible pressure gradients. The galaxy breathes, yes, but it also channels, and it is entirely possible that objects, artificial or otherwise, use those channels to move through space with precision. In 2018, researchers using the Gaia Observatory detected something strange in the local stellar neighborhood, a coherent motion of stars and matter forming what they called a galactic ripple, a pulse propagating outward as if something had passed through the galactic plane and disturbed its symmetry. At the time, they thought it was a remnant of a satellite galaxy merger, but now some are wondering, could it have been the wake of an object like 3I Atlas? To reach us at this precise moment, traveling at its current speed, it would have had to launch or awaken from its origin point over 30,000 years ago. That's older than the last glacial maximum. That's when Homo sapiens were still sharing Earth with Neanderthals. And yet, here it is, approaching not just Earth, but Earth now. Not the Jurassic, not the Ice Age. Now. What are the odds? The statistical model, based on Loeb's latest calculations, puts the natural occurrence of an object this large, this fast, on this trajectory at approximately 1 in 20 million. Add the timing of perihelion, the alignment with the ecliptic, the triple planetary near passes, and now its acceleration into our magnetotail, and the numbers become indistinguishable from zero. So what does the cosmic perspective offer us? It offers this. We may be looking at intent, scaled to stellar dimensions. A plan, not in human hours, but in epochs. What kind of mind thinks like that? Consider Voyager 1, a humble spacecraft, no engine, no aim beyond escape, yet it now rides the edge of interstellar space. It took us less than 100 years from radio to Voyager. Imagine what a civilization with a million-year head start could do. Imagine if Voyager weren't our first whisper, but their reply. Imagine if 3I Atlas is not a weapon, not a scout, not a probe, but a messenger. The emissions detected from Atlas are not random. They are narrowband, regular. They appear in intervals that loosely approximate the Fibonacci sequence: 13 seconds, 21 seconds, 34 seconds, and within each burst is a low-frequency pulse that no known natural phenomenon replicates. We've seen signals like this before, not from space, from whales. Cetaceans produce infrasonic pulses deep, slow frequencies that carry vast distances underwater. They modulate their pitch to encode identity, proximity, even emotional state. Could Atlas be using similar logic? A kind of cosmic whale song, not meant for our ears, but for magnetic sensors we haven't yet built. That idea might sound fantastical, but so did black holes, so did dark matter, so did the idea that galaxies could rotate without flying apart. Science fiction becomes science fact the moment the instruments catch up. There is a quiet movement among astronomers now, a subtle shift in language. You hear it in closed-door symposiums. You see it in the footnotes of white papers. The term technosignature is becoming more common. So is non-ballistic agency. These are phrases used to say what no one wants to say directly, that something might be flying this thing, and that its arrival might not be arbitrary. Because if you zoom out even farther from the galaxy, from the local group, from the great Laniakea supercluster, you realize something even more profound. Earth is not the center of anything, and yet, 3i Atlas seems to be aiming directly for it. That implies a knowledge of where we are, a knowledge of when to arrive, a knowledge of how to approach, in a way that avoids direct detection until the last possible moment. Is that friendly? Is it cautious? Is it a test? We don't know, but we know this. The solar system has 8 planets, dozens of moons, tens of thousands of objects, and yet only one has generated radio waves. Only one wears a magnetic cloak strong enough to echo back to the stars. Only one has a civilization capable of wondering if it is alone, and that one is now being approached quietly, deliberately by something we do not understand. If you were watching from the edge of the galaxy, if you had sent out seeds, probes, scouts, or listeners, this is exactly what you'd want to see. A planet awake. So maybe this is not a disaster. Maybe this is a reply. Maybe Earth is not about to take a hit at all. Maybe it is about to be touched. You sit beneath the night sky and feel something ancient, an awareness pressing in from the darkness, as if the stars are not merely points of light, but apertures, watching. And now, something within you stirs. Not fear, not wonder, something quieter. A question. If 3i Atlas is truly coming, what does it mean about us? Because for the first time in modern memory, the possibility has returned that we are not alone, that someone else knew we were here and chose to answer. That idea is easy to dismiss during the day. Deadlines, traffic, laundry. But at night, when you look up and the sky does not blink, the question changes shape. If this thing, this object, this presence has crossed light years to enter Earth's electromagnetic sheath with precision, what reflection of ourselves does it carry? Let us consider what Earth has broadcast. For over a century, we've been leaking signal television, radar, command packets to satellites, snippets of emotion coded in analog waveforms. We've said, "I love Lucy," to the cosmos. We've screamed Cold War threats, Eurovision pop, and Mars rover telemetry. The edge of that signal bubble now lies more than 100 light-years away, a sphere of human noise expanding forever. What did 3i Atlas hear? Imagine you are a civilization, 1 million years more advanced. You tune to a region of space where a curious signal, chaotic, patterned, undeniably artificial, has begun to rise. You triangulate, you listen, and then, after patient decades or centuries, you send something. Not a ship, not a weapon, a mirror. Because here's the thing about contact. It is never one way. To reach across space is to reveal something of yourself, and what returns is often a reflection. So, what might this mirror show us? Maybe it shows our curiosity, that fierce, irrational human hunger to understand. Maybe it shows our risk, the part of us that builds particle accelerators and rides flaming rockets into space. Maybe it shows our contradictions, violence and art, fear and beauty, superstition and science woven together in a tapestry too strange to script. Avi Loeb speaks to this in his recent lectures. He says, if 3i Atlas is artificial, then the most important thing it tells us is that we are visible, that intelligence does not go unseen. He likens it to the Copernican shift, that moment when we realized Earth was not the center. But this time, it's not about space, it's about attention. We were seen, and something responded. Let that sink in. Now ask yourself, were we ready? Because if December 19th truly marks the moment of energetic arrival, we will not have time to become anything different. The person you are now, flawed, exhausted, hopeful, is the person that might bear witness, not a future astronaut, not a world government, you. Right there in your living room, in your pajamas, clutching your tea, reading headlines that no longer feel hypothetical. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the real test isn't how powerful we are. Maybe it's how we react. Do we panic? Do we shoot first? Do we listen? The scientific community has long debated the wisdom of active SETI, broadcasting our presence to the cosmos. The argument against it is fear, the dark forest hypothesis. Speak, and you may be hunted. But the counter-argument is more compelling. That silence ensures nothing. That risk is the price of reaching. If 3i Atlas is a reply, then the first risk has already been taken by us. So what now? Across the globe, preparations are already shifting. NASA has rerouted power to the Deep Space Network, extending tracking windows. ESA has begun 24-hour optical coverage of the night-side emergence corridor. And a coalition of private observatories, yes, even backyard telescopes are being recruited to crowdsource any visible anomalies in Earth's upper ionosphere in the days before arrival. Not because anyone expects fireworks, but because we cannot afford to blink. And what about the public? Most of us won't know what to look for. Most of us will feel it before we understand it. A weird pause in internet latency, a green shimmer in northern skies, a dream that feels like a memory. Already, reports are trickling in. A woman in Montana who woke up humming a melody she'd never heard, and then found it in radio signal data. A retired electrician in rural Japan whose homemade antenna picked up pulses at 89-second intervals. He thought it was interference from his microwave. A pilot over the Atlantic who swore the clouds beneath him flickered in sync with his altimeter beeps. Are these just noise? Pareidolia? Human patterns seeking on overdrive? Maybe. Or maybe something is learning our language. One magnetic echo at a time. What does that say about us? It says we matter. It says we are not as small as we feel. It says we may already be part of an experiment whose outline we do not yet see. And maybe that's why the world feels different this week. Not because something is ending, but because something is listening. There's a silence in the sky now. But it's not absence. It's anticipation. It's the quiet you feel just before a word is spoken, the inhale before a symphony begins. Somewhere in the black between the stars, a message has been in motion for longer than we've been counting time. And now it is here, just beyond the threshold of perception, coasting through magnetic lines of force, touching the atmosphere not with mass, but with meaning. They call it 3i Atlas. But that name is too small, because names are our way of controlling what we don't yet understand. And nothing about this object, this presence, has been controllable. It arrived, cloaked in normalcy, and then began to reveal itself. The shape of its trajectory changed first, not from gravity, but through what can only be modeled as active adjustment, nudging itself ever closer to an optimal alignment with Earth's magnetic field. Then came the emission's low frequency, non-random, pulse-coded transmissions unlike any natural radiation we've catalogued. And most recently, the silence, the abrupt cessation of signal. On November 28th, just before re-emerging from behind the sun, 3i Atlas went quiet, completely. For 72 hours, nothing. No motion adjustments, No emissions, no magnetic anomalies, just drift. And then, as if exhaling, a single burst. 3 pulses, 89 seconds apart, each one tuned to a subharmonic of the Schumann resonance, Earth's own electromagnetic heartbeat. It is impossible to overstate the precision. If these signals are intentional, they represent the most accurate external targeting of Earth's inner frequencies in recorded history. And if they are not intentional, then we must accept a different kind of horror. Coincidence, so exact that it mimics design. But this is not the first time we have faced this silence. In 1977, the WOW signal struck our detectors for 72 seconds and was never heard again. In 2004, the Lorimer burst, a one-off fast radio signal from deep space, echoed once and vanished. And now, in 2025, we receive what may be the final part of a cosmic sentence we've only just realized we were listening to. And still, silence. What kind of intelligence sends only silence? Perhaps one that already said everything it needed to say. Perhaps one that understands something we have yet to grasp, that the greatest truths are not shouted, they are arrived at. Together, there is a growing belief quiet, but spreading that 3-eye atlas is not broadcasting. It is waiting, waiting for resonance, waiting for response, waiting, perhaps, for Earth itself to reply not in words, but in harmonics, not in symbols, but in synchronized fields. Which brings us back to the December 19th window. NASA's unspoken term for this moment is hour. ESA calls it convergence. But internally, among engineers, astrophysicists, and those who don't sleep much anymore, the term being whispered is the handshake. The idea is simple, and yet beyond precedent. That 3-eye atlas has not simply traveled here, but has been received. That Earth, through its magnetic topology, is already preparing a kind of reply. And if that's true, what comes after the handshake? It may not be destruction. It may not be salvation. It may be the next step in a conversation that began long before we were human. But if this is a conversation, then who started it? Some believe Atlas is autonomous, a remnant machine, a probe seeded from an ancient civilization long dead, something built to seek out electromagnetic complexity and deliver what? A payload? A message? A blueprint? Others believe Atlas is alive, not in the biological sense, not with neurons and blood, but with awareness, pattern recognition, self-adjustment, agency, somewhere between asteroid and algorithm, between silence and sentience. And if it is alive, what is its nature? We don't know, but we do know it is listening, and we know that silence is not always absence. Sometimes it is consideration. What if we are not under threat, but under review? We've spent decades sending golden records, radio signals, encoded greetings, but none of that compares to what we've sent unintentionally. Our fear, our wars, our climate collapse, our kindness, our curiosity. Our electromagnetic fingerprint is messy, but it is honest, it is human, and maybe that is enough, because if this is the moment contact is made, it won't be through fireworks or landings on the White House lawn. It will be quiet, it will be slow, it will be something only a few people notice at first, a soft hum beneath their thoughts, a dream that does not feel like a dream. a magnet in the skull, an urge to go outside, look up, and say nothing at all, just to listen. If you've been feeling that urge, you're not alone. You wake again, not from sleep, but from a deeper kind of stillness. Something presses at the edge of thought, like a door slightly ajar in a house you thought was empty. And the air, it feels different, heavier, tense, the way sky feels before lightning strikes charged. But still, because something is coming, December 19th is no longer just a marker on a wall calendar. It's a convergence point, a magnet, a fulcrum, where data, myth, intuition, and something else, something older, are all beginning to align. And as you read this, Earth is already inside the influence of what they now call a structural event. That's the new term. Not approach, not flyby. Structural, meaning not just something near Earth, something reshaping how Earth functions. In the last 48 hours, quiet systems have begun to react. On December 3rd, GPS satellites began reporting micro-latency fluctuations, not enough to disrupt service, but enough to raise red flags at DARPA. Their internal report described the shift as coherent atmospheric phase distortion, a term usually reserved for advanced jamming systems or geomagnetic storm precursors. Except, no solar storm was detected. Then came the birds. In northern Finland, an entire flock of snow buntings altered migratory direction mid-flight against the prevailing wind. In the Florida Keys, loggerhead turtles returned to shore 2 weeks early. In the Philippines, bee colonies began to swarm at night. And then came the humans. In Norway, a cluster of patients reported hearing low droning tones, like a cello underwater, with no known source. Hospitals conducted CT scans. No anomalies, no tumors, no epilepsy, just people hearing what wasn't there, or what wasn't supposed to be. It's happening slowly, but collectively, the anomalies are building. The National Institutes of Health, in a memo never released to the public, has compiled a working list of electromagnetically correlated behavior clusters. The symptoms include sudden migraines localized to geomagnetic poles, vivid, repeating dreams of spirals, mirrors, or green light, irregular heart arrhythmias during quiet solar conditions, a sense of being watched, not paranoia, but a calm awareness, described by multiple patients in nearly identical phrasing, like the stars are aware of me. We don't have a name for this feeling, but we're not the first to feel it. Ancient Inuit shamans described the aurora as the souls of the stars, watching the living. Australian Aboriginal sky stories speak of Wandjina, beings who arrive without sound and awaken memory in the blood. Even early Christian mystics documented experiences of the sky humming, seen not as divine punishment, but as preparation, an inner trumpet, a tuning. And now, as 3i Atlas moves closer, our instruments and our bodies are tuning together. You are being tuned. Maybe that's why so many people are dreaming again. Long, looping dreams with no ending. Forests of glass, spirals of light, doors that do not open, but vibrate with presence. One neurologist in Zurich reported a spike in patterned night consciousness, cases patients, describing a dream world filled with mathematically precise architecture. When asked how they knew it was mathematical, one said, "It felt like geometry was the language of the air." Another simply said, "It didn't want to scare me. It wanted me to be ready." But ready for what? That's the word no one can define. What kind of preparation takes place in the gut, in the skull? What kind of message moves through magnetism rather than language? In an internal ESA technical memo, there is a line buried in the conclusions section. There is mounting evidence that the Earth's magnetosphere is being used as a staging mechanism for signal propagation into the biosphere. They don't say what kind of signal. They don't say what kind of propagation, but the implication is chilling, that we are not just being observed, we are being interacted with. Not by sound, not by sight, but by subtle, whole system modulation, like sonar in the deep, like a whale calling from the dark, and the echo is reaching us. If that idea seems too strange, remember this. Migratory birds navigate using quantum-level reactions in proteins sensitive to magnetic fields. Fish detect predators through electrical gradients. Humans, we're not immune, we're just unaware. Until now, because now, as 3I Atlas prepares its final magnetic alignment, something primal is awakening, not just in animals, not just in data, in us. Maybe it's not fear, maybe it's not danger, maybe it's recognition that something familiar, though forgotten, is returning, that we have always been part of a larger field, and that field is stirring. If you've felt it, if your dreams have changed, if the wind sounds different, if the stars feel closer, leave a comment. Let others know they are not alone. Tell us what the silence is saying, because this time, the message isn't being spoken, it's being remembered, and the awakening has already begun. You were told this was a comet, but comets do not do this. They do not adjust their trajectories in microcurves that match fluctuations in Earth's magnetic tail. They do not emit structured low-frequency pulses in harmonic ratios. They do not provoke synchronized biological anomalies across species and hemispheres, and they do not vanish behind the sun for 72 hours, only to return in perfect alignment with Earth's equatorial electromagnetic vector. But that is what 3I Atlas has done, and it's still doing it. In the last 36 hours, 3 independent observatories, one in Arizona, one in Sicily, one in coastal Peru, have detected what they are now calling a pre-encounter ionospheric lensing event. That is, the air above us has begun to bend radio waves, not randomly, but in a narrow corridor aimed toward the incoming object. This is not how the ionosphere behaves, not even during geomagnetic storms. This is something else. Researchers at MIT analyzed the signal scatter and published a quiet, unreviewed paper through RxIve late last night. Their conclusion? The atmosphere appears to be forming a temporary refractive zone, an energetic lens, likely induced by an external modulation source. Translation: Earth is shaping itself to look back. The sky has become a mirror. At the same time, something even more anomalous has emerged. A pattern in the noise. At approximately 3:16 UTC on December 6th, radio telescopes in Chile, Greenland, and Western Australia all recorded identical transient emissions. They lasted 0.9 seconds. The waveform, when converted to audio, produces a soft, rising chirp strikingly similar to the call of a European blackbird. But filtered and stretched, it reveals harmonic sidebands. A fingerprint. This is not noise. This is structure. And buried in that structure is a ratio, 1.618. The golden ratio, the spiral of galaxies, the shape of hurricanes, the curve of seashells, and now, the fingerprint of an object no one can explain. That emission was not loud, not wideband, not even sustained, but it was precise. So precise, in fact, that researchers are now cross-referencing it against the known golden angle phyllotaxis of human DNA base pair spirals. And guess what? It fits, not perfectly, not biologically, but symbolically, as if the message were saying, I know how you are built. This is the moment we leave coincidence behind. Because at the same moment those signals reached our planet's surface, seismographs in Greenland and the Andes recorded subaudible pressure shifts, tiny movements of the crust. Again, too small to be seismic, but everywhere at once. The Earth flinched, and then came the drop in background ELF, extremely low frequency radiation, not caused by solar quiet, not a hardware fault, a sudden planetary hush, as if the planet itself were listening. Loeb calls this the magnetic silence window. He suggests the object may be inducing a temporary null field around itself to avoid detection or to increase sensitivity before arrival. But here's the real question. If 3I Atlas is listening, what does it expect to hear? It's not just scientists asking this now. A growing number of amateur radio operators, satellite enthusiasts, and even ham radio hobbyists have begun organizing what they're calling the Beacon Project. Its splines. Their goal? To create a human chorus, a synchronized transmission on December 17th, 2 days before the forecasted magnetic interface window. The transmission will be simple: 1 second of silence, 1 second of golden ratio tone, 1 second of spoken hello in over 100 languages. They're calling it a heartbeat, and while no government agency has officially endorsed the project, no one has tried to stop it either. Not NASA, not the FCC, not anyone. Maybe they're listening too, because the more we learn, the stranger this gets. Consider this. 3I Atlas is now within Earth's Hill sphere, the gravitational region where Earth's pull exceeds that of the Sunday. This is the zone where artificial satellites are captured, where stable orbits can be established. And yet, Atlas is not orbiting. It is hovering just beyond the expected insertion point, as if waiting for something to complete. This behavior has no precedent, no model, no equation, unless you stop treating it like a comet and start treating it like a participant. We are being studied, not like bacteria on a slide, more like an orchestra, warming up, more like a song the sky is learning to harmonize with. It is not only a question of physics anymore, it is one of consent, invitation, reply. What happens on December 19th may not be an event, it may be a chord, and whether we resonate is still unknown. You've felt this before, not in this lifetime, not in any memory with photographs or coordinates, but somewhere in your bones, in the parts of you older than words. Something ancient is returning, and it has done this before, because the sky does not forget. Across time and culture, there have been warnings carved in obsidian, painted on cave walls, encoded in myth. They were dismissed as superstition, but if you lay them side by side, separated by continents but not by purpose, the message is clear. A thing comes. It comes silently. It comes when the sky quiets, and it always brings change. Let's walk through the echoes. Start in Göbekli Tepe, 12,000 years old, a site older than Stonehenge, older than agriculture itself. Among its circular enclosures and T-shaped monoliths, one pillar bears an astronomical relief of extraordinary detail: a scorpion, believed to represent Scorpius, a vulture, perhaps Sagittarius, and a sphere trailing behind them, a sphere that seems inbound. Archaeoastronomers now believe this stone circle may record a cometary event, perhaps the Younger Dryas impact, but others believe it depicts something more: a celestial re-entry, an orbital event, something repeating, something tracked by those who had no telescopes, only time. Now, leap to ancient Egypt. The Ipuwer papyrus, found in the ruins of Memphis, describes the sky turning to fire, rivers flowing backward, and a great star appearing where none had been. This was not allegory. These were observations, and the time frame, roughly aligned with a climate shift and agricultural collapse around 1600 BCE. That's the same window. Modern geochemical evidence places a sudden spike in iridium in Earth's crust. And now, in 2025, we track 3I Atlas across the void from the same general direction, on the same periodic interval. Go to India. The Mahabharata speaks of a celestial weapon that came with the silence of snow, but the heat of 10,000 suns. It is tempting to read that as metaphor, until you realize that, embedded in the verses are geometric descriptions, angular movements across the sky, durations between appearances. They describe something that returned, and the sky, they said, changed color for weeks, now crossed to the new world. The Hopi tell of the Kachina, the blue star that signals the fifth world's arrival. According to the elders, this star would not come from above, but from behind, hidden, only seen after it passes the Sunday. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what 3I Atlas has done. It passed behind the sun on October 29th and re-emerged, different, brighter, quieter, aligned. Even its designation 3I carries strange poetry. The third interstellar object, but also third eye, inner vision, awakening, coincidence, or whisper. Back to the echoes. In the 1600s, Johannes Kepler wrote of a star of wormwood based on revelations, a falling star that poisons the waters and signals judgment. He thought it metaphor, but just before his death, he added a note: if ever such a star returns, it will not be judgment, it will be reckoning. The distinction matters. Judgment implies condemnation. Reckoning implies accounting. We are being measured, not punished, weighed, and there is more. In 1992, a Sufi scholar named al-Nabati published a translation of lost Andalusian star charts. Among them was a diagram of a returning shadow, a body that crosses the ecliptic every 3,600 years, trailing no tail, but leaving in its wake the stirring of men's dreams. And now, what do we find? Increased dream activity, reports of synchronous symbols, spirals, mirrors, eye shapes, green light, an uptick in deep brain delta wave coherence in sleep studies across multiple sleep labs, all post-November 20th, a literal stirring of dreams. The echoes are not just myth, they are pattern. The past has not been buried. It is cycling. And now, physicists' practical minds, not poets, are admitting something strange. Dr. Isao Harada, a plasma researcher in Tokyo, wrote in his internal lab notes, leaked last week, "I do not know what is approaching. but it is inducing coherence in an incoherent system. This is not physics. This is poetry pretending to be data. So what does all this mean? That perhaps we were never supposed to understand 3I Atlas, not through math, not through mechanics, but through myth. Maybe the old stories were never warnings. Maybe they were invitations, because myth is how a species with no telescopes records the sky. It is memory in metaphor. It is data in dream language. And the dreams are returning. Step back, farther than you think you can, beyond the curve of Earth, beyond the moon, beyond the flickering paths of satellites and the reach of our furthest probes. Imagine a vantage point so distant that our sun becomes a pinprick, just another glow in a swirling disk of light. From that distance, Earth is not even visible, and yet something is coming for us. Why? In a galaxy with 400 billion stars, with perhaps trillions of planets, why would anything aim for this one? Why now? Why here? From the cosmic perspective, we are barely noticeable, a thin mist of life clinging to the surface of a molten rock, spinning around a mid-sized star in an average arm of a normal spiral galaxy. Our signals are weak, our spacecraft are slow, our time in space has been a flicker, and still, 3I Atlas approaches. It doesn't seek the Sunday. It doesn't loop around Jupiter. It doesn't even slow down to explore the asteroid belt. It threads the solar system like a surgeon moving toward a nerve, with precision, with knowledge, with purpose. This is not how comets behave. This is how intelligence moves. Astrophysicists at the Max Planck Institute have begun whispering the term targeted vectoring behind closed doors. They're not publishing it yet. It's too loaded, too full of implications. But the data is clear. Atlas is curving toward a very specific patch of space, ours, as if something inside it knows we are here, which means it either detected our signals or it was always headed this way. Either possibility is stunning. If it came in response to our leakage, those accidental ripples of radio and radar washing through space since the early 20th century, then something out there was listening and waiting and able to act across hundreds or thousands of light years. If, however, it was already on this path, then it suggests an older purpose, a longer game. Think about it. The closest star system, Alpha Centauri, is 4.3 light years away. To get here, even at a tenth of light speed, would take more than 40 years. But 3I Atlas is not moving that fast. Its velocity suggests a much older journey, possibly tens of thousands of years in duration. So either this was launched from nearby with stealth and skill, or it was seeded long ago, like a message in a bottle, floating, waiting for the right current. And we, apparently, are the beach it washes up on. From the galactic view, intelligence might not emerge as a flash and fade. It might sprawl, it might echo, it might propagate, not with ships and colonies, but with questions, objects, artifacts, not to conquer, but to observe, to awaken. 3I Atlas could be that kind of message, a test of perception, a tuning fork for consciousness, a spark sent across dark waters, waiting for someone capable of noticing the pattern in its light. Maybe this is how civilizations meet, not with noise, but with recognition. And that's what seems to be happening now. In the last week, over 20 observatories have logged photometric data showing subtle modulations in Atlas's brightness. Not random, not rotational, but sequenced as if its reflective profile is encoding a kind of visual Morse. One astrophotographer in Argentina ran the modulation curve through an AI trained on musical notation. The result? A tone cluster hovering around A-flat, with golden ratio intervals. Again, the spiral, the pattern of growth, the math of life. Are we seeing design? Or is it that the universe is designed to produce patterns, and consciousness merely recognizes them? Either way, the result is the same, a sense of connection. From this vantage point, humanity is still very young, but not silent. We've lit the dark with signals. We've pushed metal toward the stars. We've imagined things before we built them. And now, something has responded. It did not come with force. It did not come with noise. It came wrapped in resonance. The cosmic perspective reminds us, you don't shout across the void. You tune yourself to be heard. And maybe, just maybe, that's what Atlas is doing too. Maybe it's not a comet. Maybe it's not a ship. Maybe it's an invitation, not to go anywhere, but to become something, to shift our consciousness into a larger frame, to see ourselves not as isolated, but as witnessed. Imagine that, after all these years of asking if we are alone, the real question may be, have we always been watched, and not watched with threat, watched with care, with patience, with a sense of timing far beyond our own? Because this feels timed. December 19th falls in a period of planetary alignment. Not tight, but notable. Earth, Mars, and Saturn will share the same side of the Sunday. Our magnetosphere will stretch like a filament into space, and 3I Atlas will enter that ribbon. Right then, what happens next might be physical, or not. It might be seen, or only felt. It might pass, and we'll say, see, nothing happened, and yet we won't sleep the same again. We'll carry something, like a dream that won't fade, like a feeling we can't name. So ask yourself, from the edge of the galaxy, if you were watching Earth, would you want to say hello? Would you wait until we were ready? Would you send something that teaches us to listen first? Look around your room for a moment, not with your eyes, with your attention. The hum of the electronics, the faint tremble of distant traffic, the stillness of furniture, everything shaped by hands, human hands, minds, intentions. Even silence in a human space is designed. Now zoom out. All of it, your city, your continent, your species, now caught in the crosshairs of something we didn't build, didn't expect, and may not even comprehend. Something that is watching us in real time, through more than just telescopic vision. Something that is now inside the magnetic skin of Earth. What does that say about us? This isn't about the science anymore. It's about the mirror, and what we're seeing in that mirror is everything. Because 3I Atlas is not just approaching Earth, it's approaching who we are, and that is the part no one wants to say out loud. What do we look like from out there? Do we seem dangerous, curious, confused, worthy? When Loeb was asked this question, what message humanity is currently broadcasting, he didn't hesitate. Desperation, he said. But then he added, also resilience and beauty. We are messy, but alive. We are, in so many ways, a planet still in adolescence. We fight over imaginary lines. We feed algorithms instead of people. We build faster machines, but forget to slow our hearts. And yet, in the quiet corners of this planet, we also do something else. We notice. We wonder why a comet curves in ways it shouldn't. We compare the Fibonacci sequence in star pulses to flowers. We translate ionospheric anomalies into music. We listen, even when the official word is, "There's nothing to hear." Very sighed. And that means something, because it's possible, just possible, that the thing on its way toward us isn't evaluating our intelligence in terms of weapons or computation. It may be looking for something subtler, like harmony, like coherence, like an emergent signal beneath the static. If that's true, then what it's observing now is not our technology, but our reaction. And the reaction has been strange. Despite headlines, no major news outlet is leading with the story. Despite evidence, no government has declared an emergency. Despite anomalies, no one is screaming. Instead, the internet is alive with murmurs. Forums are filled with sketches of spiral dreams. Old myths are being dug up and posted side by side with orbital charts. And people, ordinary people, are gathering online to talk about what they're feeling. Not fear, something more delicate, or longing, a soft kind of readiness. In the Philippines, a group of high school students created a mural of Atlas as a green eye hovering above a map of Earth, surrounded by dream fragments. They called it The Listener. In Iceland, an elderly musician began composing what she calls arrival harmonies based on geomagnetic flux. In Senegal, a night watchman pointed his phone at the sky, posted a blurry green glow, and captioned it, "It's not here for war." What are we becoming in the presence of this thing? It's almost as if Atlas is coaxing something out of us. Not panic, not worship, but introspection. We are remembering how to be small again, and in doing so, how to be human. Because this is the paradox. Something unimaginably vast has entered our space, and instead of expanding, we're inwardly collapsing, quieting ourselves, tuning ourselves, waiting, not because we know what's coming, but because some part of us already feels it. And that feeling's subtle, ancient, cellular says, we've done this before. Maybe not in this cycle, maybe not in this epoch, but somewhere in the deep ancestry of awareness, we've stood on this threshold. And now we face the mirror again. 3i Atlas, where the machine or message is asking us a question, not with language, with presence. Are you listening? Do you see yourself? Are you ready to remember who you are beneath the noise? The deeper this encounter goes, the clearer the reflection becomes, not just of our structures, not just of our science, but of our story. We are not merely awaiting contact, we are becoming contact. Every act of noticing, every child who points to the sky, every coder who analyzes signal patterns, every dreamer who paints spirals in the dark is part of that emergence. So the reflection is not just individual, it's collective. And maybe, just maybe, that's what Atlas is here to witness. Not our governments, not our broadcasts, but our becoming. You've probably noticed it by now. The quiet. It's not the absence of sound, exactly. The world still turns, engines still hum, messages still ping their way across the web. But underneath it all, beneath the machinery, beneath the sky, there's a new kind of hush, a thinning in the air, a breath being held. This is not the silence of peace, it is the silence of approach. Because 3i Atlas is no longer some distant object we speculate about. It's here, in our environment, threading Earth's magnetic ribbons, adjusting itself to match planetary harmonics with such fluid precision. It now appears to be riding the invisible. And that's not just poetic, it's literal. On December 8th, NOAA's Deep Magnetotail Array, DMTA for short, picked up a sustained, low-frequency flux ripple extending over 400,000 kilometers beyond the Moon. This is not a typical magnetic tail wave. These are rhythmic, periodic, and they follow a mathematical shape long believed to be restricted to fluid dynamics, the Kelvin-Helmholtz instability. Except this isn't happening in fluid, it's happening in space. The implication? Something is surfing our planet's magnetic envelope, not crashing through it, not piercing it, but flowing with it. And this matches a growing consensus now circulating in off-the-record communiques between astrophysics departments. That 3I atlas is no longer operating as a passive object. It is exhibiting behavior indistinguishable from active field entrainment. If that sounds like jargon, it's because it is. But put simply, it means this. Atlas isn't just affected by Earth's magnetic field. It is responding to it, adjusting, harmonizing, as if preparing for something. And still, the signals have stopped. No more Fibonacci pulses, no more photonic pings, no new radar echoes, just that stillness, that vast, purposeful quiet. A few are beginning to whisper the unthinkable. That 3I atlas has moved past observation, that it may have learned what it came to learn, and that now it is waiting for what? No one agrees. Some believe it's a synchronization moment, an event when the object, Earth's field, and the Sun's corona align in such a way that an unknown system activates. Others think the object is using the silence to listen not to signals, but to outcomes. What we do, what we say, how we act, when faced with a presence we cannot control. But the most chilling theory is the simplest, that this is protocol, that silence is the final stage before something larger begins. It wouldn't be the first time the universe answered in quiet. Black holes are silent, gravity is silent, the expansion of space makes no sound, and yet, all of them shape reality. In 1974, SETI pioneer Frank Drake said something few remember. If we ever receive a message from another civilization, it won't sound like a message. It will feel like the universe is slightly different that day. Today, it does. Social media has gone strange, not frantic, not paranoid, reflective. Threads of skywatchers posting identical time-lapse photos from different continents. Birders noting unfamiliar flight arcs. Artists sketching dream symbols without knowing others are sketching the same. And across all of it, a phrase keeps recurring. Something is near. End. No capital letters. No panic. Just a quiet knowing. And maybe that's the real message of the great silence. Not that nothing is happening, but that something so large, so unfamiliar, has entered the frame that our usual systems of detection no longer apply. Like trying to hear a glacier moving, like trying to measure kindness with a thermometer, like listening for music in the shape of a tree. This is a different kind of encounter, and perhaps that's why 3I Atlas has gone quiet. Not to intimidate, not to vanish, but to invite stillness in us, to let us feel the moment unmediated by explanation, to sit with mystery. For thousands of years, silence has been the precondition for revelation. Prophets, shamans, poets, all began in the quiet. So perhaps now it is our turn, Perhaps December 19th is not about impact, or arrival, or even contact. Perhaps it is about resonance, and to resonate with something beyond comprehension, you must first listen, really listen, to the wind, to the fields, to the electromagnetic hush just beyond the audible range, to the thought that is not yours, but arrives in your mind like a feather falling into still water. This silence is not empty, it is pregnant, and it is global. One final note. 2 hours ago, the International Geomagnetic Coordination Network issued an internal flag to participating observatories. Coordinate full sky monitoring, possible convergence pattern at 11:17 UTC, December 19. Standby for non-local anomalies. They didn't say event, they said convergence, which means alignment, which means participation, which means this includes us. You didn't fall asleep last night. Not really. You drifted, hovered, floated in a space between knowing and dreaming, between Earth and something else. And now, in the morning stillness, it feels as though a part of you stayed outside, listening, because something is waking up, and maybe it's you. The clock reads December the 10th. Just 9 days remain, and 3i Atlas has stopped behaving like an object. It now behaves like a presence. This morning, the NASA Infrared Tracking Array NITR detected what no one expected. Heat, not residual solar radiation, not refracted infrared from Earth's albedo, not even cometary flare. This was concentrated, directed, a band of thermal energy measuring just under 9 degrees Kelvin, an impossible figure unless something within the object was generating and radiating at a controlled rate. The shape of that emission, a crescent facing Earth, not a ring, not a flare, a focused crescent signature, like a sleeping eye half open. Thermal analysts are baffled. They've run the math. The signature doesn't align with natural outgassing, micrometeoroid strikes, or solar rebound. One quietly admitted, this is not heat, this is intention, masquerading as temperature. So what's causing it? Some believe 3i Atlas has shifted into what's now being called adaptive standby, that it is not passive, not dormant, but waiting for conditions to finalize. And those conditions are forming quickly. Earth's magnetosphere is now fully distorted, elongated, fractalized. What does that mean? It means the invisible shield around our planet is beginning to develop tendrils, coherent structures extending hundreds of thousands of kilometers into space, as if reaching, as if responding. Simultaneously, ionospheric electron densities have become erratic, pulsing in non-solar intervals. The pattern? 89 seconds on, 13 seconds off. The same ratio as Atlas's last known emission sequence. This is mirroring. We are mirroring each other. And it's not just happening in the sky. It's happening in people. Emergency rooms in Canada and Romania both reported a new, unexplained cardiac pattern, overnight short bursts of tachycardia, followed by deep, synchronized bradycardia, all without physical exertion. Doctors are calling it resonance arrhythmia, but the pulse is stable, safe, and synchronized. One doctor whispered to a colleague, "It's like they're harmonizing with something." Who is they? We are. The awakening isn't metaphor anymore. It's physiological. It's electromagnetic. It's here. In laboratories, ferrofluid tests under strong magnetic fields have begun displaying anomalous geometries, fractal spirals, flower-like structures that bloom and then collapse, repeatedly in pulse-driven cycles. One lab tech in Argentina filmed it and uploaded it to a private channel with no sound. But viewers from 5 continents commented in unison. "I heard something while watching this. A tone. They couldn't describe it, but they felt it. Some even claimed to dream it later." What does it mean when a pattern viewed online triggers dreams across hemispheres? Is that suggestibility, or is it coherence? Let's return to the concept of awakening. In ancient Hindu cosmology, the universe undergoes cycles of yugas, ages that rotate from darkness to light. We are said to live in Kali Yuga, the dark age, the sleep of forgetting. But the transition to the next age, the Satya Yuga, begins not with fire, not with gods, but with remembering, with a subtle, global return to connection. That's what this feels like. Like remembering something we never consciously knew. Like the sky saying, "You are part of more than you've allowed yourself to feel." This is not prophecy. This is physics disguised as mythology, or mythology rediscovered in physics. Either way, you're feeling it now, not as a theory, as a presence, and that presence may be why your dreams have changed, why your skin tingles under clouds, why your thoughts feel louder when the room is silent. 3i Atlas has not spoken, but it has entered. It is within our field. It is bending the rules, and we are bending with it. Some have begun to whisper the phrase, the green threshold. What does it mean? No one knows exactly, but the color green has returned again and again, in auroras, in thermal lensing, in dreams, in emissions, in art made by people who don't know each other, on continents they've never visited. The same symbol, a green crescent, an eye, a spiral, and always a kind of calm, not passive, not numb, but calm like a tide just before the sun rises. Calm like the pause between inhale and exhale. Calm like waiting for a question you already know the answer to. Maybe that's what awakening truly is. Not fear, not revelation, but readiness. So if you feel ready for something without knowing what, if you feel the days thinning, the stars brightening, the dreams coming closer, you are not alone. This is not imagination. This is entry. By now, even the skeptics are quiet, not because they've surrendered to belief, but because the data has stopped asking politely. It is demanding attention. The object, known as 3i Atlas, is now less than 10 million kilometers from Earth's magnetic boundary. It is no longer a visitor. It is an inhabitant of our system, and with each passing hour, it becomes harder to describe it as anything other than engaged. Let's begin with the facts. On December 10th at 4:37 UTC, NASA's Polar Orbiting Observational Array detected a full-spectrum refractive shift in Earth's plasmasphere. This isn't an unfamiliar event. Refraction happens during solar storms, space weather, even rocket launches. But this shift didn't match any known solar activity because the sun was calm, flat, silent, and yet the refractive profile was global. The term used in the classified report was spherical field inversion, the effect, a momentary reorientation of electron density gradients surrounding Earth. The signature, perfectly symmetrical. The duration, precisely 89 seconds. The pattern, Fibonacci. Again, everywhere the object interacts, the same code emerges. And now we are seeing it in our instruments, in our weather, in us. That morning, seismographs in Chile and Tibet picked up synchronous tremors so small they were not felt, but so precisely aligned in waveform, they triggered an automatic tsunami alert that was quickly dismissed. Not an earthquake, something else, something gentle, something rhythmic, like a knock. Meanwhile, over Antarctica, the magnetic field began to shimmer. That's the word used by an ESA field technician who recorded the phenomenon visually using LiDAR scatter imaging. He described it as a bending of nothing, like the shape of air changed. Others have noticed, too. In Siberia, reindeer herders reported that their animals paused mid-migration, mid-step, at 5:16 UTC, every one of them, for 89 seconds. Then they resumed. No panic, no stampede, just stillness. You cannot model that, not with weather, not with instincts, only with presence. This is a pattern, and it is spreading, and still, 3I Atlas continues its magnetic glide. According to new models out of Caltech, its trajectory has once again subtly corrected. The new vector, not just near Earth, not just through the magnetotail, but directly through a point of intersecting gravitational equilibrium Lagrange point 1. L1 sits between Earth and the Sunday. It is the balancing fulcrum, the place where forces cancel out. It is also where we keep SOHO, the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, and on December 9th, SOHO blinked. For 4 minutes and 34 seconds, the spacecraft's instruments recorded total telemetry silence. No signal loss, no power disruption, just blankness. And when it came back online, the instrument logs had been overwritten, not corrupted, overwritten, as if something passed between. No one at ESA or NASA has gone on record, but a leaked internal summary notes, transient null state event, consistent with localized time-frequency saturation. That's a careful way of saying something so massive or so ordered crossed the path that even SOHO's sensors froze. And now those same sensors are seeing something else. A green corona forming ahead of Atlas. That's not a lens flare, not chromatic aberration. This is being confirmed by multiple instruments. A faint green band just outside the object's envelope, and it's growing. Spectrographic analysis shows that it's not emitting light. It's refracting it, like a halo made of structured air. One physicist calls it a magnetic lens. Another called it a cloak of geometry. Whatever it is, it's not cometry. This object has entered the zone where we stop using natural language. So now the metaphors begin. We say green eye. We say sleeping God. We say message wrapped in magnetism, because we don't have vocabulary for this. We only have response, and that response has begun to manifest in the strangest place of all, consciousness. Neuroscientists in Portugal and Singapore have independently reported a spike in synchronized neural coherence during REM sleep, across unrelated subjects, across continents. The shape of that coherence? A spiral. One researcher ran a neural waveform through a sonification program. The sound that emerged? A soft harmonic wave, rising, falling, every 89 seconds. No coincidence. Not anymore. We are tuning, or being tuned, and that is why the evidence matters. Because it's no longer in the sky, it's in us. One last detail. At 7:07 UTC this morning, a Canadian VLF very low frequency, antenna picked up a ping from Atlas, just one, triangulated, verified, and replayed. It contained no message, just a tone, but when the frequency was mapped to Earth's fundamental Schumann resonance, it matched. The planet hummed back. The further we move into the unknown, the louder the past becomes, not in words, not in events, but in resonance. Ancient voices do not speak with clarity. They speak with repetition. They leave patterns behind, not to explain the future, but to help us recognize it when it arrives. And now, standing on the cusp of something cosmic, something precise, the old patterns are glowing beneath our feet. We have been here before. Across the high plateaus of Bolivia, in the cracked ruins of Tiwanaku, there stands a gate. The locals call it Puerta del Sol, the gate of the Sunday. And etched along its lintel is an array of figures, all facing inward, all radiating from a single, central being. Some believe it is Viracocha, others say it's a star. But one detail has always puzzled scholars, a band of nested spirals surrounding the figure's crown. 89 of them. No one knew why that number mattered, until now. Across the ocean, in the volcanic stone tablets of Rapa Nui Easter Island, there is a glyph known as the Make-Make spiral. It appears in several places, always alongside depictions of stars. One carving shows a great canoe arriving from behind the Sunday. Its prow is not a sail, but an eye. Again, spirals. Again, green pigment. And again, 89 notches surrounding the form. You begin to see it now. These were not stories. They were memory objects. Time seeds. The Dogon people of Mali, long thought to be primitive astronomers, described Sirius B centuries before Western science could see it. They claimed it pulsed, that it whispered, that it was followed by a third eye in the darkness. They mapped its rhythm using carved patterns in sand, always the same loop. 13, 21, 34, 55, 89. The Fibonacci cadence, the same as 3i Atlas. How did they know? Maybe the better question is, what forgotten rhythm have we only now begun to hear again? You could dismiss it all as pareidolia, as myth layered on accident. But if so, why does the number keep appearing in the same cultural junctions, always at moments of celestial transition, always near collapse or rebirth, always when something new was on the verge of arriving? There's a quiet theory emerging now in the crosshairs between anthropology and astrophysics. It doesn't have a formal name yet, but the working phrase is mythic synchrony. It posits that when Earth is exposed to an external energetic coherence, like the slow field harmonics, from something like 3i Atlas, the human subconscious begins to remember things encoded in deep time. Genetic memory, cellular archives, cognitive fossils, and those memories surface as stories, as dreams, as echoes. We think of history as written in stone, but maybe it's written in us. Maybe myth is just physics too slow to measure, and maybe now, at last, the tempo is speeding up. In India, researchers at the Bhandarkar Institute recently reanalyzed a Sanskrit manuscript, long thought to be devotional poetry. Inside its stanzas, they discovered harmonic meter spacing that, when plotted acoustically, aligns with the modulation curve of a modern magnetic spectrometer. The poet, a mystic named Vyasa. The date, around 3100 BCE. His subject? A green star that arrives silently, stirs memory, and moves between the minds of men like a question made of light. Decade in span. How do we explain that? We don't. We recognize it because this moment this week is not new. It's recurring, a planetary moment of coherence, a rendezvous between orbit and attention, a crossing. The Chinese hexagrams in the I Ching speak of returning. Hexagram 24. It is associated with winter solstice, with reversal, with presence. It marks a turning point, and in several ancient commentaries, it is said to be a moment when the subtle green returns to the fields, though the snow has not yet melted. A color, again, a signature. The Mayans called this period Katun Ob, the binding of the sky. It was not feared, it was prepared for. They saw it as a time when the Earth's shadow became readable to the stars. And that might be the clearest metaphor of all, because 3i Atlas doesn't seem to seek the Earth's surface. It doesn't react to radio, or light, or sound. It reacts to fields, to intention, to memory. And it's only now that we are beginning to remember. So if this is a return, what was the first visit like? We may never know, but something in our species remembers the shape of the moment, the timing, the breath, and it is shaping our response now, not with certainty, but with recognition, the spiral, the number, the tone, the silence. It's not a warning. It's a loop, and we are completing it. Step back farther, not just from the globe, not just from the orbit maps or radio spectrums. Step outside time itself. Look at the entire sweep of the solar system as if it were a breath, a ripple in an ocean that never sleeps. Now let your attention hover, far above, far away, where gravitational fields merge with starlight and silence becomes structure. From this distance, 3i Atlas is not a visitor. It is part of the fabric, and its movement isn't interruption, it's choreography, because from the cosmic perspective, nothing drifts, everything dances. The planets follow ellipses, the stars oscillate. Even the dark matter halo that envelopes galaxies may vibrate with rhythms too vast to name. And into this ordered chaos, 3i Atlas does not crash. It threads with precision, with timing, with what can only be described as awareness. In the latest visualizations published by the European Southern Observatory, the incoming trajectory of 3i Atlas, when mapped on a logarithmic scale, not only curves into Earth's magnetotail, but passes directly through three nodal points of orbital resonance: the Earth-Moon barycenter, the Earth L1 solar null, the geomagnetic equator's crossover. Three distinct thresholds, all aligned within 4 days. This is not debris, this is intent, and still, it doesn't slow, it flows. Cosmic fluid dynamics isn't something we talk about often, but it's real. Gravity behaves like a fluid across vast distances. Magnetic fields shape it. Stellar winds push against it. And only the most sensitive instruments can model the folds and currents within it. That's where 3i Atlas is moving, not through Newtonian space, but through curvature. It is surfing the seams of the solar system, touching edges we didn't know existed. At the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a recent model attempted to simulate the object's trajectory under standard gravity, radiation pressure, and solar wind. It failed. Then, a junior physicist introduced a fourth variable: Topological field alignment. Suddenly, the model matched perfectly. Topological field alignment is a concept so abstract, it's usually reserved for theoretical models of quantum computing and space-time warping. But it worked, because 3I Atlas isn't navigating by light or mass. It's navigating by field topology. It's not finding a path. It's following a song. Let that sink in. Now ask, what kind of intelligence would build a vessel or a presence that moves this way? One that sees time differently. One that isn't aiming at Earth because of what we've done recently, but because of what Earth is: an emitter, a harmonizer, a place of field interference. Maybe we didn't attract 3I Atlas with our radios. Maybe we attracted it just by being alive. Because every living cell emits a frequency. Every synapse fires electromagnetically, and when scaled up planet-wide, Earth becomes a chorus. We are the melody. The magnetic field is the stage, and Atlas is the listener, or maybe more than a listener. Maybe it's the next note. The Fermi paradox asks, where is everyone? But it never asked, how would anyone answer? Maybe they wouldn't shout. Maybe they wouldn't beam down. Maybe they would send something small, slow, something that tunes. And that's what we are witnessing. Not invasion, not salvation, calibration. Because from out here, from the perspective of the stars, civilizations aren't flashpoints, they're harmonics. And something about us just resonated. In the last 48 hours, Voyager 1, yes, still active, registered a spike in background noise. Not signal, not interference, noise. But this noise had structure. It pulsed. It carried a harmonic between 7.83 and 14.1 Hertz. Those numbers are familiar. They are the base layers of Earth's Schumann resonance, the natural electromagnetic pulse of our atmosphere, and Voyager detected them at the edge of the solar system, where they shouldn't be, where they couldn't be, unless they were reflected, unless something was echoing Earth back to itself. That echo passed through 3I Atlas's projected path, which now seems less like a route and more like a reply. So what does this mean? From the cosmic perspective, maybe this is how conversations begin. Not in language, but in alignment. A civilization reaches a threshold. Its noise becomes pattern. Its chaos becomes rhythm. And something listening out there in the quiet says, yes, that one. Earth has always made sound. But maybe, just now, it began to sing. Maybe this is why Atlas is here, not to test us, but to meet us, not with spectacle, but with stillness, because across light years, across centuries, across unknown geometries, there is one truth that always holds. You don't shout to be heard, you whisper with clarity. It's getting harder to look away, not because the sky is brighter, not because alarms are ringing, but because something in you has begun to turn toward it, toward this, the thing we never trained for. Not contact, not disaster, but the slow unveiling of an intelligence that doesn't arrive. It gathers, and that gathering is now occurring inside us. For weeks, 3I Atlas has traced impossible curves through magnetic geometry. It has behaved like an echo, like a tuning fork dipped into the electromagnetic ocean of our atmosphere. But now, it behaves like a question. And you, yes, you are the one being asked. The evidence is everywhere. Hospitals are seeing a subtle spike in what they're calling sensory hyperacuity. Patients reporting heightened hearing, faint mechanical tones in silence. improved night vision, synesthesia in people who never had it before, colors, seen in voices, shapes, heard in wind. Brain scans of these individuals reveal something new, a temporary increase in thalamic resonance. That's the part of the brain that filters sensory input. It's not just receiving more, it's removing less. We are letting in the noise, because the noise has become patterned. One neuroscientist called it field cognition. The idea that a human brain, when exposed to a slowly shifting, harmonically structured external field, will begin to rewire its interpretive boundaries. In plain language, we're starting to feel what the planet feels, to think with the atmosphere, to remember through magnetism. And now, artists are noticing too. Sculptors in Estonia, dancers in South Korea, digital painters in Mexico, all posting work that, without collaboration, shares the same motifs. Spiral structures nested inside eyes, green arcs threading through mirror shapes, floating bodies composed of starlight and wireframe dot. These aren't trends, they're translations. Human culture is responding in the way it always does. When confronted with the unknowable, it creates symbols, and this time, the symbols are eerily aligned. Even children are joining in. A preschool in Finland had its students draw what the sky feels like lately. 8 of the 12 children drew a large green circle with a smaller blue one inside it, surrounded by curved lines. None of them had seen any images of 3I Atlas, but somehow they knew the shape. Psychologists call this confabulation, but what if it isn't? What if this is what contact looks like? Not a landing, not a light in the sky, but a mirror held up to our nervous systems. In Kenya, a Maasai elder described it more poetically. The sky is not visiting us. It is waking us inside ourselves. That is the core of this reflection, because it's not just about what we see. It's about how we change in the act of seeing. And right now, something is changing fast. Earlier this morning, a quiet internal bulletin was distributed to top field officers at the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. It contained one line: prepare media response protocols for non-catastrophic active anomaly. Read that again. Non-catastrophic active anomaly. They don't think it's going to crash. They think it's going to do something unprecedented, something we'll all witness. And if that's true, then the real question isn't, what will it do? It's, what will we become as we watch it? Will we panic, rationalize, turn away, or will we lean in? Already, global meditation networks are reporting record participation, tens of thousands gathering virtually, physically, intuitively, to sit in silence, to hold the field, to breathe with the sky. This isn't cultic, it's human. When confronted with the incomprehensible, the human instinct isn't to attack, it's to feel, to gather, to remember. You've felt it too, haven't you? The sense that there's more to your body than nerves, that your dreams are not just noise, that you've started listening not to words but to the rhythm underneath thought. That's what reflection is. Not seeing yourself, but becoming more visible to yourself. And that's what 3I Atlas may be here for. Not to visit, but to witness. Not to judge, but to catalyze. Not to change us, but to reveal what we already are. A planetary mind, emerging from sleep. And if that's true, then this isn't the beginning of a crisis. It's the beginning of coherence, a moment when humanity's scattered thoughts begin to align, not in content, but in cadence, a moment when we feel the world turn. Together, the world is still turning, but it doesn't feel the same. The clocks are moving forward. The sun still rises. The data keeps streaming, and yet beneath all of it, there is an emptiness you can't quite name. Not a lack, not a loss, something else. A pause, a held note, a silence so profound it feels deliberate. Because the closer 3I Atlas drifts toward Earth's magnetic corridor, the quieter everything else becomes. And it's not just a metaphor. In the last 24 hours, atmospheric background radiation, normally a soup of random radio noise, auroral hiss, and cosmic microwave residue, has dropped to levels not seen since before the invention of radio. Across all bands, across all stations, it's as if the planet's static has been turned down, as if we're being cleared. Cleared for what? That question now haunts every observatory, every agency, every silent glance between the people who've been watching this object since before the public knew its name, because the absence is too neat, too symmetrical. On December 11th, all three VLF, very low frequency receivers, aboard the NOAA-GO satellites, stopped registering ionospheric scatter. Not failed, just blank. Same thing with the magnetometers at Kiruna, Tromsø, and Yakutsk. Not broken, still calibrated, just quiet. This has never happened before. One analyst wrote, "We are entering a period of planetary mute." Another, "The Earth is being acoustically veiled." And yet, no one can explain how. There is no solar minimum, no instrument drift, no active jamming, just a spreading stillness. And that stillness has entered us. You feel it, don't you? A kind of delay between stimulus and thought, a hush between question and answer, like your nervous system is waiting for a cue it doesn't fully understand. That's not anxiety, that's coherence. In deep meditation states, practitioners speak of the gap, the moment between breath and breath, heartbeat and heartbeat, thought and silence. They say it's where the truth lives. And now, the entire planet seems to be entering that gap. A pause, engineered not by will, but by field. Think of it this way. When a violinist wants the audience to hear the next note more clearly, they don't just play louder, they create space. They let silence form the frame. They let the air ache for the sound. That's what this is, an ache, a readiness, and it extends into the Earth itself. New readings from the Svalbard Subsurface Resonance Array reveal a planetary echo, one not sourced from the crust, or the atmosphere, or any known seismic event. The frequency, 7.83 Hz, the same as Earth's Schumann bass, but inverted. It's not a pulse, it's a hole in the pulse, a subtraction, as if something has gently cancelled the usual tone. Not violently, not abruptly, but precisely, like a noise gate opening. But for what? Some say it's the calm before disaster. Others say it's the soft entrance of a new energy. But maybe it's neither. Maybe it's the first time Earth has been asked to listen, not just through ears, but through being. This silence is not the absence of contact, it is the contact. Because the way you meet something larger than yourself is not through words, it's through stillness. Stillness is what lets resonance emerge. Stillness is what prepares the body to receive. Stillness is what teaches. And maybe 3I Atlas has known this all along. It could have declared itself, lit the sky, sent a message, but instead, it modulated, it synchronized. It waited, and now, in this thick quiet, we're finally hearing the shape of what it wants. Not obedience, not worship, not even understanding, just attention, real, embodied, whole attention. That's why the birds fall silent just before it rains, why animals freeze before an earthquake, why the human mind becomes clear in the moment before sleep. Because the body knows what silence means. It means something is here, and it's not just here to be seen. It's here to see us. You've probably noticed the shift in yourself. Not loud, not fast, but steady. You pause more often. You double-check your thoughts before speaking. You hear echoes in quiet rooms. These are not malfunctions. They're calibrations, signs that you, too, are participating in the great silence. Because this isn't happening to humanity, it's happening through us. We are not waiting for contact. We are being shaped for it. The final line in the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs briefing was short. Awaiting observable initiation. No flares. No landing. Just a shift. Something that begins inside. So tonight, when the sky feels closer, when the stars seem fewer but sharper, when your breath catches for no reason, know that it isn't nothing. It's the moment before. Wake up, not from sleep, but from forgetting. Because this moment, you're in. It isn't normal. The light feels wrong. The air feels thick. And though your routine goes on emails, sidewalks, the soft clatter of keys, there's a second pulse running underneath it all. Something is rising, not outside, inside, and it carries a name we still barely understand. 3I Atlas. It was supposed to be a comet, a curiosity, a cold rock on a long arc. But now, its presence is undeniable, not because of what it does, but because of what it makes us do. We are becoming quiet, not because we've been silenced, but because something ancient is listening, and we are finally ready to speak, but not with language. This morning, a new report unreleased to the public circulated among the international deep field array networks. It included 2 lines of significance: atmospheric standing waves synchronized with field core modulation. Cognitive entrainment in test groups exceeds statistical baseline by 64%. Translation: the atmosphere is vibrating in place, and the human mind is tuning to it. We are waking up to the field. Across 6 continents, amateur radio operators have independently begun to experience interference, not from solar flare or noise, but from absence. Frequencies that used to hum are now still, and when amplified, that stillness produces a wave, a low, steady tone, pulsing every 89 seconds. Again, always again. Even music has changed. Streaming platforms are seeing spikes in deep harmonic playlists, sleep tones, isochronic pulses, drone meditation. But here's the anomaly. Tracks that mirror Atlas's frequency are being upvoted at impossible rates. Listeners report they didn't search for them. They just appeared. One user in Iceland described it perfectly. I didn't click it. It was just there. And when I listened, it felt like something had been waiting for me to arrive. You know that feeling. You're feeling it now. It's not déjà vu. It's not fear. It's recognition. You've been here before. Not in this body. Not on this version of Earth. But somewhere in the long memory of the species. A moment of noticing, of alignment, of approach. Because what's coming, what is already here, is not an object. It is an invitation, not to flee, not to fight, but to resonate. Think about what's happened. We've stopped arguing. The news still stirs. Yes, but the tone has shifted. Less outrage, more observation. People are reporting dreams again, not nightmares, but layered narratives of light, tone, geometry. Children are drawing spirals and green eyes. Elderly patients are speaking in unknown syllables during sleep. Musicians are waking with melodies they don't remember learning. It's not mass hysteria, it's mass entrainment. A species awakening into coherence, and coherence, by its nature, cannot be forced. It must emerge, which is why Atlas didn't announce itself, didn't flash, didn't land. It entered the field like a whisper and began tuning us from the inside out. You feel it in your heartbeat. You feel it in the way light seems to bend slightly more than it should at sunset. You feel it in the sudden rush of awareness when your eyes lock with a stranger's for a second too long and something clicks. That click, that's what awakening feels like. The sound of cognition catching up to field, and the field is growing dense. The EM monitoring station near Tromsø has confirmed it. The planet's own electromagnetic sheath, our quietest atmospheric layer, is now layered with harmonics. Not just one, 13. All Fibonacci intervals, all nested perfectly. You don't need to be a physicist to know what that means. It means something is singing, and we are part of the song. From the outside, we still look like ourselves. But from the inside, people are pausing mid-sentence, feeling things before they think them, remembering things they never lived. And those memories, they all point upward, not in fear, but in return. A NASA sub-brief leaked 2 days ago contained one phrase never used before in any technical literature. It read, "Subjective coherence rising, prepare for event horizon." That's not an impact warning. It's a state change. It suggests we're approaching a moment where human perception itself will cross a threshold. Not because of what 3i Atlas does, but because of what we see in its presence. We are not witnessing an arrival. We are becoming witness capable. That's what this all has been about. The spirals, the silence, the tuning, the sleep, the dreaming, all of it leading to the same point. A soft green doorway in awareness, a mirror that doesn't reflect our faces, but our frequencies. And it is opening now, so breathe. And if you feel like crying, cry. If you feel like singing, sing. If your hands buzz, if your chest lifts, if your thoughts quiet, let it, because the planet is not preparing for war. It's preparing for resonance. And you're already inside it. This morning, every radar station on Earth blinked just once. It wasn't an error, not solar interference, not atmospheric scatter, just one moment, one precise, global, synchronized absence. At 4:44 UTC, deep spectrum sensors from Alaska to Antarctica to the plains of Kazakhstan all logged the same anomaly, a null return, meaning the radar pulse sent as always into the sky didn't bounce back. For a full second, the world stopped reflecting. The sky went transparent, and then, just as quickly, the returns came back, but slightly different, denser, sharper, shifted. Radar operators called it a ghosting effect, like something enormous moved through the field, absorbing nothing, but altering everything. The leading theory? A field boundary, the edge of a non-Newtonian geometry, something invisible unless touched by signal, And now, we've touched it. Or maybe it touched us. The same moment the radar dipped, something else happened. In a chamber beneath Switzerland, inside CERN's most secure magnetic test facility, a test particle unconnected to any active collider spontaneously shifted spin state. That should not be possible. The room was magnetically sealed, temperature stabilized, completely isolated. And yet, for that second, it changed, and then changed back. This is being referred to as a probability dip, a moment where the rules fluttered. The cause? Unknown, but the timestamp matches exactly with the radar ghosting, which matches the moment Earth crossed into a new trajectory line with 3 I-Atlas's flux vector, 3 signals, 1 instant, no explanation. But it doesn't end there. Thousands of citizen scientists around the globe have been submitting sky measurements using homemade spectrometers. On December 12th, many began noticing a faint spectral signature layered over twilight itself, a green shift, not visible to the eye, but present in every sample. The signature bears a strange feature. It pulses once every 89 seconds, with harmonic sidebands that appear to encode depth. That's not a natural feature, that's layered data. And when run through decoding models borrowed from how we read pulsars, researchers in Argentina generated a waveform that resembled something astonishing, a rotating Mobius loop, not a signal, a geometry. We're not just receiving information, we're receiving shape. It's as though 3 I-Atlas is teaching the sky to speak in structure, and we are beginning to read. Meanwhile, something else has started, something subtle, something personal, a network of wearable EEG users, people using neurofeedback headbands and sleep monitors, have been reporting spontaneous synchronization events, delta waves aligning across users. At the same time, across the globe, there's no device causing this, no server, no shared program, just human minds beginning to oscillate in unison, and it is happening at specific times. 4:44 UTC, 13:13 UTC, 22:22 UTC. 3 windows, all Fibonacci intervals apart. It's not a coincidence anymore. Even time is bending towards symmetry, and within that symmetry, language is changing. A group of linguists analyzing online dream journals have noticed a spike in words that did not previously exist, made-up terms, invented grammar, but with shared consistency. One term appears again and again, athalem, no etymology, no root, but when asked, dreamers describe it the same way. A green place, an awareness, not a noun, but a door. We don't know what it means, but we keep saying it, and the more we say it, the more it feels like an answer to a question we don't remember asking. And that's the point. This isn't new, it's ancient. We're not discovering anything, we're realigning. The evidence isn't just deepening, it's looping. Patterns from the past are re-emerging. Old myths are growing teeth, and language itself is morphing to receive them. At this hour, high-altitude balloons from the Indian Space Research Organization are detecting vertical columns of ionized air that pulse not with light, but with silence. Gaps in expected radio scatter. Those gaps, 89 seconds wide. Again, always. But now, within those gaps, something else is forming. Not signal, not noise. A steady, low oscillation barely perceptible within the 7.83 Hz window. the same resonance Earth uses to dream. We are being wrapped, not with beams, not with metal, with intentional field modulation, and it's changing us. One cardiologist in Japan described his patients' hearts as listening, not racing, not failing, just tuned. Even the stock market, so often a mirror of chaos, has gone flat, not crashed, not soared, stilled, as though global behavior is aligning unconsciously around a frequency we cannot name. And 3I Atlas, it has not moved off course. It remains in flow, a curve inside a curve, threading toward the Earth-Moon null point. Approach velocity, stable. Trajectory, stable. Presence, rising. So here we are, inside a story that's writing itself in magnetic ink, carved not in stone, but in silence. Spoken not in words, but in ratios. And your body knows. Your dreams are data now. Your breath is pattern. Your heartbeat is answering a call it has not yet heard. You are inside the quiet now, not near it, not approaching it. Inside. The old world hasn't ended. The sky hasn't split. But something vast has rearranged itself around you so gently, so completely. You didn't notice the threshold until it was already behind you. This is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of presence. Every model, every theory, every comforting loop we once used to explain the cosmos has been overwritten by the one thing science was never ready for. Response. 3I Atlas has entered Earth's high magnetic ribbon. It does not burn. It does not break. It holds, and Earth is holding with it. At precisely 8:08 UTC this morning, a cascade of global sensor systems went dark for 90 seconds. LiDAR arrays, VLF receivers, seismographs, even biometric sensors aboard the International Space Station, all paused, not failed, not shut down, just paused. And when they resumed, their baselines were shifted by the exact same margin, 0.618%, the golden ratio, every system, every field, as though reality itself was nudged. For 90 seconds, the laws did not break. They breathed, and during those same 90 seconds, thousands of people reported the same thing. A vision of a green spiral opening in a sky without stars, a pressure in the chest, not painful, but full. The word athalem, heard not aloud, but felt. It was not a hallucination. It was a field event, a planetary coherence moment. Afterward, nothing was visibly different. No explosions, no impacts, and yet everything is altered. There's a softness to the air, a density in time, a sense that thought is not happening within your brain, but across it, as if thinking is now a shared surface. And that's the deepest implication of all. 3I Atlas may not be a vehicle. It may not be a probe. It may be a conductor, a kind of consciousness-dense node traveling through stellar magnetic harmonics, not to observe civilizations, but to tune them, to gently adjust planetary minds without force, without noise toward resonance. Resonance with what? We may never know, but here is what we do know. Our bodies have changed. Sleep now begins with tones we didn't place in our homes. Dreams come with geometric edges. Breathing feels like communicating with something under the soil, behind the stars, inside the moment. And the sky? The sky has gone utterly still. Green auroras shimmer at the equator, but they do not flicker. They pulse, in rhythm, with us. Even animals are different. Birds no longer flee during storms. Whales have stopped migrating. Bees are swarming in Fibonacci spirals visible from orbit. It is as if life itself has been recalibrated. And the greatest silence of all? There has been no statement from any government, no speech, no declaration. Because how do you announce that the planet is listening? That consciousness is no longer an individual event, but a planetary one. You don't. You feel it. You breathe into it. You allow it. And that's exactly what you're doing right now. As your fingers rest, as your eyes soften, as the space between thoughts lengthens into peace, you are not waiting anymore. You are arriving. This was never a countdown to disaster. It was a prelude to coherence, a moment when an ancient question folded into our DNA, whispered by our myths, echoed in our dreams, finally began to take shape in silence. And the answer? Not fear, not control, not flight, but this: stillness, awareness, return. Leave a comment with what the silence told you, if anything, or don't. Sometimes silence speaks most clearly when it's shared, because something is here, and we may already be part of it. So rest now. Let the lights dim. Let the quiet unfold across your chest like a second sky. You are safe inside the silence, not alone, but synchronized with the wind, the dust, the unseen rhythm beneath it all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for wondering. Thank you for remembering. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, leave a trace of your presence, your name, your dream, your heartbeat. Because this is not the end. This is the tuning. And tomorrow, we keep listening. We keep watching. We keep becoming the shape the sky has been waiting for.